Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest comes from one of the most sought-after communities in Northeast Florida. This Californian came to Florida just a few years ago and has quickly made her mark as one of the top real estate agents in the region. She has been a successful entrepreneur with 25 years of experience in sales and marketing. She prides herself on her strong Midwestern work ethic, negotiation, and communications with an unmatched devotion to her clients. Let's welcome this Cal Poly grad, now real estate agent in the Fernandina, Amelia Island community, Colleen Gerke, to the show.
Well, thanks.
Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yes,
I was gonna.
totally right.
It looks simple, but you never know.
Yes, it's like a key, Gerke.
Excellent. I appreciate you coming on, and one of the great things about the show is obviously meeting new people and learning a little bit about you, because I've done my research and I really have become. I've said thousands of times on the show, I should have been a psychology major, because this is like a personal development for me, because I'm like taking your life into my, and your experiences, and hopefully we're going to share those experiences obviously with the listeners of what you're doing. You've only been in the business, January is 4 years, according to your LinkedIn. It was January.
Right.
Yeah. So we're coming up on 4 years, and what are you doing? What's clicking up there? Obviously it's a great area to be in if you're a real estate agent, because it's an area people want to move to, but it's not like you don't have competition up there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small island, and there are a lot of agents
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. But Nassau County is growing, and if you are looking to move to Florida, that is one of the spots that you should be looking in, not only because of opportunity, growth, and the schools.
Yeah, it's paradise.
Yeah.
And I think it's been a secret for a long time, and the word's gotten out. Got us to sell everything in the Midwest and move to Florida.
Right.
We love it.
Well, you hear during the political campaigns, the flyover, right? Midwest is the flyover. People are flying from New York to LA, and
Yeah.
they don't think about it. I think so many people have come to Florida, they drive through or fly over Nassau County. They don't realize when they come on 95 and cross into Florida, that's Nassau County, and that's what the area we're talking about.
Yeah, it's more than just marshes that you see from 95.
Yeah.
It's some of the best beaches in Florida.
Right. I'm going to take just a short mention so I don't forget, because I generally do. I'm going to put this up in my camera here. These great mugs by Remy Graphics, who they are up in Nassau County in Fernandina there. They do these great, and she'll do one-offs. I don't know if you know that, but if you're looking to do this mug, put John and Sally, welcome to Fernandina, whatever. She'll do one or two at a time. You don't need to order a dozen or so, but she does these. And obviously, like I said, you got one hot pink one there in your gift bag there I provided for you. So
Thank you.
I always start off real easy. Of course, we're always talking about you, so it's as simple as something you've lived it. Tell us a little about young Colleen growing up. You chose to go to Cal Poly, and if I saw it correctly, you were studying agriculture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us what you wanted to do, and Cal Poly's not easy to get into.
No, it was a great school. So I grew up on the Central Coast in California, and it was in a big agriculture area, Santa Maria, Santa Barbara. Like, you saw Sideways, the wine movie, that was my hometown. And so I grew up showing pigs, and was big in FFA and 4-H. And so when I went to Cal Poly, I majored in ag science, and originally I thought, okay, I might be an ag teacher, but then I went the ag communications route.
What would ag communications? What would you do? What is someone that goes in there and does ag? What would you be doing?
So lots of different things you can do. I originally thought I'd write for like a livestock publication. Like one summer, I interned in the Midwest for a cattle magazine, and it was a great job. Visiting with producers and getting on farms. I loved that.
So you for cows, or you think we should get rid of cows to save our climate?
Oh, poor cows. Like, there's a place, everything in moderation. Farmers, I'm still, I have a big heart for farmers. And they're the biggest stewards of the land out there. Yeah. I just listed a farm, and I was so excited to be able to go out and see the animals and get my feet on the ground. It's just something in my heart. So after I graduated from Cal Poly, I ended up moving to Kansas City and got a job doing public relations for big ag companies like BASF, Animal Nutrition, the Wheat Foods Council, some dairy industry stuff, and that was great. Just taught me a lot about communicating through writing, through verbalizing, speaking. So I was there for a couple years. And then I got the opportunity to work for John Deere.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's one of the biggest brands out there in the ag world. And so I thought it was a great opportunity. So I went there and worked in advertising for a couple years.
Did they search you out, or were you always just looking for that opportunity to get with someone like a John Deere from a brand standpoint and get into what you're talking about from the marketing?
I actually found the job online. It was kind of when online was starting.
Yeah.
I found that, and it was a big deal because my grandfather worked for Case International, which is the competitor of John Deere.
Okay.
And so I told my mom, I accepted this job at John Deere, and she was like hell you did. Like, you're not working for John Deere. And it ended up being a great job.
Yeah.
And then, so I worked in print advertising, or I guess we did print, radio, television, all sorts of media. Internet was kind of getting big. And then they decided, okay, we need a full-on e-business division because the internet's gotten so big.
Right.
I'm old. So, so I ended up...
I'm older than you, but just go ahead.
A little bit.
Assume you graduated Cal Poly by the time you were 22 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't put the do not disturb on there. Yeah, go on about the e-business. I want to evolve that into what, obviously, because I'm sure you took some tactics or whatever stuff that you discovered there to your e-business today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somebody I worked with, so it was we were a new division. I was a manager in the division, which was a great promotion. And another manager in there said something that still resonates with me today is everything comes together on the web. You know, you can think you have this great strategy, but then you'll realize when you put it up on the website, you're missing a key piece because it just all comes to fruition there. And I noticed that building my website when I'll get in the next step, but when we had our wineries, I'd see that all the time.
So what you're saying is, because when you're putting it out there for the public to see, the internet wants to be interactive, a lot like social media. Right. Like, so the client or, possible consumer sees this ad or interaction, and then the question is what happens next, right?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you see, obviously, where you have breakdowns in your process really fast once you're out there on the web. And even today, like my website, luckily at Engel and Volkers, we have some great systems behind our websites where we can automate a lot of that. But just... yeah, you can definitely see where your breakdowns are.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the word call to action is more necessary in our advertising today online. You're getting them for whether you're doing a little reel or whatever, but there's some action you need to take. Obviously, Instagram right now, you're seeing ads all the time, and it's like this button here, hey, click here for the next step. Versus the old school advertisement where it's print or a billboard or something like that. It's more of a branding than an actual call to action.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, having to follow up on that. It's one thing to take that first step, but then that continued path down there. And people, today expect instantaneous on the web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you're there at John Deere, but you migrate into opening your own wine store.
Right.
So what happens there? The transaction's over and push you into that situation. Was it something you were looking to do or something? Tell us what happened.
So growing up in California, I came from wine country out there. We loved going back, visiting my parents, going to all the wineries, all tasting rooms. Sideways came out. The wine industry was just booming. And my husband, he grew up on a farm in central Missouri. So we started driving around one night and we were living in downtown Kansas City, in the city, and found this farm for sale. And, it was just gorgeous. And he loved it because it was away from people out in the country.
Well, just in the suburbs of Kansas City. I'm not sure it wasn't downtown Kansas City, right?
Correct.
Suburbs of Kansas City. Okay.
North of Kansas City.
Right.
And I we started driving up the driveway, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can picture vines here. So we bought this house. You know, we did the transaction in like 24 hours. It was this crazy leap of faith, totally changed our life.
What was your husband doing?
He worked for in the dairy industry doing communications then.
Okay.
So he's in the ag communications industry too.
Okay.
And so, you know, he was still working his corporate job. I was still working at John Deere. And that first year we moved in, we just started doing research, and people thought, you can't grow grapes in the Midwest. You're nuts. But I did some research and found some that would grow. And we put 250 vines in the first year, and it was just supposed to be a hobby. And it kept growing. We kept adding more and more.
How many acres did you have overall?
15.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was also getting my MBA when I was at John Deere.
Oh, my goodness.
So I started kind of putting together.
When did you sleep?
Yeah, it was busy time. But the vineyard was a kind of our relaxation. Like, we'd get home from work or get home from school on the weekends and go out and prune vines.
Right.
But I just started running the numbers on what are we going to do with all these grapes when they come in. And I found out you can make a lot more money if you put it in a bottle and sell it as wine, opposed to just selling it to grapes in another winery.
Right.
But, you know, we didn't have huge trust funds we came from. And
because, I mean, I've visited some of the, I've never visited ones out in California because I was in Michigan with Quicken Loans. We, you know, have ventured with some of the wineries that are up there and crossed over it into Canada, because there's some just on the other side of the river from Detroit and so forth that are like mom and pop, basically there. You had to obviously put in an infrastructure.
Well, we started really small. So we actually converted our basement into the winery and got all the licensing, like the federal licensing, state licensing, county licensing, and the state came out and they were like, I don't know, this, you know, you're not supposed to have it in your house. But then it turned out that the agent who was coming out inspecting us was in the same fraternity as my husband, and realized that. And he said, you know what? Just put some drywall up over these doors, and then you'll be a separate facility. So we started totally small in our basement.
Right.
And then people started coming out. They would figure out. We started selling our wine through stores.
Like the first harvest, how many like bottles of wine would you get out of that initially?
I want to say we maybe did 50 cases of wine that first year.
Was there a dozen bottles in the case? Okay.
And since, you know, we're making it in our basement, we sold it through stores. But luckily, we had an awesome graphic artist who really helped us in the beginning. She was at John Deere too, and so she had really eye-catching labels, and it kind of took off, and people figured out where we were. And so you would see cars on the weekend drive by thinking, okay, is this a winery or is this a house?
Can they sneak in there and get some? Yeah.
And people would knock on the front door every once in a while. And so finally I said, well, people want to be here.
Right.
Like, people are coming up to our door. Let's put a bar downstairs and see what happens. And so we ended up, you know, doing some...
Do you need a special license for that to give away a couple free samples, or how does that work?
I think you had to like apply for another license, but once you had your main license, it wasn't that big of a deal to get a tasting license, at least in our county in Missouri. And then it kind of took off.
Because how many other wine tasteries were there in that county?
It was actually kind of growing. I think when we first started, there were 3, and then by the time we left, I want to say 7.
Wow.
So it was, a lot of people don't know this, but Missouri was a huge wine state before Prohibition.
Oh.
Like the biggest state in the country for wine production. So
interesting.
Kind of went back to our roots.
Yeah. So you end up opening an actual store.
So we opened a store, and then so we're still working corporate jobs, just doing this on the weekends. We would have tasting room open, and then it was really picking up, and I was just exhausted. You know, on my lunch breaks, I'd be delivering wine to stores around Kansas City. On the weekends, I'd coming home, working in the vineyard, working in the winery. And then I got pregnant with our second child, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to quit John Deere. Like we need to focus on the winery. And so this was kind of in the back of my head. And then John Deere did downsizing, and they offered anybody in the company a severance package if you wanted.
Wow, how convenient is that?
Yes, it was perfect. So
yeah.
I even got to leave a few months before my son's arrival, and had a severance package. I'm like, okay, this is our time to test it, see if it'll work. If it doesn't, I'll just find another job in a year. But we have, this severance that we can work with. And it ended up taking off.
Wow.
So I quickly saw, okay, we've got to get out of our basement.
So you start off with approximately 600 bottles in your first, but you're going to get better, and I imagine the maturity of the vines start to produce more.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. As they get older, those first couple of years, you only let them have a little bit of harvest,
right?
Just because you want them to put their energy into sustaining the plant and the root systems. But then we were getting more grapes, and then we ended up using, everything from the vineyard, and then started buying from local winery or local vineyards around the area because we needed more grapes.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. So when you initially started, your initial, you said you planted, I forget how many vines you say you planted, like 200 or something?
250.
250 vines.
Year, yeah.
That just like I don't know how much kind of space does that take up? You had 15 acres. Do you end up expanding pretty substantially?
So I think we were up to 7 acres of vines. And then we put up what I thought at the time was a big facility. But then, so we had a separate wine facility, a tasting room in there, and we could do some small events. And that I think lasted 2 or 3 years. And then we had to expand again. We needed more warehouse space to store all the wine we were producing.
So now you're up to how many bottles of wine now, 3 or 4 years into this? How many bottles of wine are you actually producing? Well, I assume is there really one harvest a year?
One harvest a year.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the Midwest, that can get challenging just with, you get a hailstorm, you get straight line winds. We had some years we lost a lot of fruit. I know by the time we sold the winery, I think we were up to 3,000 cases.
Wow.
Yeah.
3,000 cases, from 50 to 3,000 in a matter of 3 or 4 years. 5 years.
I was thinking it was a few more years than that.
Okay.
But
well, that's substantial though. 50 to 3,000. Let's just say it was 6 or 7 years. There. I mean, that's substantial, rapid growth. And how you manage that, I think the one thing that people may not be thinking about, like you said, you're working at John Deere, you're doing this, and your business is already growing. It grew to a point of, do I continue with John Deere? Then you're off, and to reach the 3,000 cases a year level. I mean, you had to start hiring help, I would imagine.
We did.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're pretty crazy, and we like working a lot. I mean, I'm a total workaholic. And so
it sounds like you loved what you were doing. You loved the whole ag thing and the grapes, and that was just you just enjoyed doing it.
Yeah. And we loved it so much. In there, we opened a second winery too. So there was another town, kind of a more tourist town, and so we ended up opening a totally second winery, had totally different wines for over there, different branding, different names.
Just another small 15, 20 acre type lot, or more land?
This was actually, it was a historic town, kind of like St. Augustine. And it had like a main street. And so we just opened a tasting room on that street and didn't do any of the production there. We did a small amount of production, but nothing.
Oh, I thought you said when you bought over there, you got a building.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Not land to grow more grapes.
Right.
You were still growing the grapes at your home.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. Sorry.
Gotcha. That's all right.
So we opened that winery too, and we're doing that, and that did, I think, another 1,000 cases roughly a year.
From the same grapes that you were getting, or now you're buying grapes from other wineries now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I put this whole story together. This is fascinating, though. This is great stuff.
And it's been a while since I've talked about
you're pulling it up. No, it just, I mean, I consider him a man of faith, and he guides you in certain ways. And obviously he's guided you through this path and this time period here of, just rapid growth, how you guys managed it from your basement to putting a bar in your basement to then building a whole separate building, to which you see in a lot of these, family-owned little wineries like you're talking about. Like I was saying, when I was just driving through Canada, outside Detroit on the other side of the river there's a lot of this type stuff, and that's what they had. There's this nice building. You go in, and that there are bottles there, but you go up and get a little taste of the different wines that they're doing. Of course, they do ice wine up there. That's right. To get the grapes when they just get frozen. Yeah, yeah, and all that kind of tasting. That's what I'm visualizing when I'm seeing your.
That's totally it.
Yeah.
And I knew from coming from that, the marketing side is, okay, you can build it, but that's not necessarily going to get people to come.
Mm-hmm.
So we started thinking of out of the box stuff to get people to come out, not just to taste wine. So we got real creative with events, like we would do Halloween candy wine pairing, Easter candy wine pairing, Thanksgiving dinner wine pairing. And that was pretty unique back then. People kind of thought, oh, that sounds weird, but now everybody's doing it.
Well, because I think now I know this wine shop I used to go to in St. Augustine, and I've done some events there in the past. If you want people to drink wine, you have to educate them a little bit.
Yes.
It's not like going out and buying a beer, although these guys are now into these, I'm not into the foo-foo beer. I'm just a kind of now I'm a Coors Light drinker. I was a Bud Light drinker, but I'm a Coors Light drinker now. But, I'm pretty basic there, but some of these guys are getting into these little breweries and stuff like that. And they start, all these different flavors now you can get, right? But it's the same thing with wine. And if you start educating people a little bit, it's fun. It's a thing to do. And now, obviously, when they walk out, they're going to buy some wine, but next time they're going to have a fish or a steak or whatever they're doing, they're going to match it with the right wine.
Yeah, and you're right. So many people we found, would ask so many questions and want to know about the process, especially being in Kansas City, because it was kind of a unique industry. And so that our business really took off. We did a Groupon for where you could come up and do a tour and a wine tasting.
Yeah.
And we got so much positive feedback on our tours from people saying, wow, I've been to Napa and I had no idea about this side of the process. Like, we did tours out there. This was totally different because we would take them all the way through the vineyard, tell them what we do out there. They'd get to touch the vines and then take them in the production room. And they'd get to see the equipment and see, okay, this is a very hands-on business there's a lot of passion that goes in winemaking. And then by educating them that way, they're proud to actually say, oh, we went to this winery, and they want to buy your wine because they want to tell their friends and family that they're having over and sharing their wine with. Yes. Yeah. Like they felt, and people would say, oh my gosh, I met one of your friends the other day, and it was a customer you talked to.
I know the listeners, if they're listening live right now, or if they listen to this 2 weeks from now, whatever, on the podcast or watching the video, they're probably, why are you guys talking about so much for wine? But what I'm reading deep into you, when you make the move over to real estate and you come here and you'll tell us how you transition now, how that detail that you're talking about has got to be part of your real estate business and part of your success, because you've dug deep in the understanding of what people don't want to tell you they don't know, but they don't know.
Yeah. So
you just tell them, and that way you don't, make them feel bad or anything. Oh, you don't know this? Oh, let me tell you. No, you just educate them. Tell us a little bit how you've pulled some of these experiences from the winery to now into your, just the your relationship building, your personality, mindset, and have you taken all that from the winery and now into real estate in the Fernandina area?
Well, I think it started with the transition of getting out of the wineries. Like I said, we had the smaller winery in Weston, and we thought we were happy running both of them, but then kind of somebody presented themselves that I thought, oh my gosh, I could see this person taking over the winery someday. And our eventual goal was to always sell that winery. We knew we just didn't know it would happen so soon. And so we didn't actually have a broker when we sold that business. It was my husband and I working directly with this buyer.
Right.
And I really like going through that process, especially like helping kind of educate her about here's how you run a business. These are the things you look at. And, you know, we wanted her to be successful and go off on a good foot. And
you put a good label out there. You're kind of attached to that as it goes forward, right? Yeah. You want it to continue to go on.
And I mean, it's a stressful process, especially, you know, selling your house, selling your business, you know, you have a lot of heart in that. And just, you know, going through that transition, it was actually kind of fun with her.
Yeah.
And so that kind of got me sparked in the back of my head. And then, so we had just sold that winery. And every fall we would take some sort of a trip after we finished Crush.
So you sold the where you were living, or the smaller one? Okay, in the touristy town.
Yes.
Okay.
So we sold that one. Still lived on the vineyard and the winery, and thought we're gonna stay in this forever.
Right.
But then I remember I have a childhood best friend that lives in Amelia Island, and we would come down and visit them after we were done with the harvest every year. Yeah, and we could just relax and be on the beach. It would be cold in Missouri, and we'd be warm here on Amelia Island. Right. It was perfect. And I remember we were at a bar called Sliders on Amelia Island, sitting by the beach. It was warm. We weren't in sweaters, and we had just sold that winery. And I looked at my husband and I said, okay, eventually I want to live in some place like this. We could be warm all the time.
Right.
And then I thought, why are we going to wait and come down here when we're old and we can't do anything?
Right.
Like, let's start working on the plan now, like to transition. You know, we love it down here. We work all year so we can come down here. Let's put a plan in place so 3 years from now or however long we can get down here. And so we did. We came home from that trip and started putting together a plan. Like you said, I'm really detail oriented. So I think we had a 5-page plan of we have to do this, and this to get it sold and move on to that next step. And so for that winery, when we sold that one, we went through a business broker just because it was a much bigger deal.
Yeah.
I saw, you know, how representing yourself in that first deal, how it could go sideways really fast if you're, you know, your
some emotions are in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, we have to distance ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
But I constantly found myself when we were working with this broker, like looking at their marketing materials saying, no, like this isn't right. We need to do this, and this. Or I think even we had it on the market for a couple months and weren't getting very much traction. And I said, who are you targeting right now? And I think they were targeting manufacturing company, like people interested in, like factory. Yeah. And I'm like, no. This is a totally different business. This is more retail. This is very hands-on. Like small business, we need to go after totally different people.
Similar to you and your husband, you know, on that level.
Right. Yeah. It's not going to be somebody so focused on the product, I didn't think. So I remember we sat down with them and looked at their software of who you could target, and we're like, no, let's check these people. And sure enough, we started getting leads in. So, I mean, it was perfect. You know, they found us the perfect buyers for the winery. It's been great to see those people, you know, take it and just continue it and grow it. But again, going through that process, I'm like, you know, I really like this. Like, I like the sales process, and there's so many different aspects to it. So it's kind of in the back of my head. All
right. So you sell there, you come to Amelia Island, and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, what are we doing next?
Well, we had a plan.
Okay.
So, go ahead. So we left the winery with our car, basically. We had a Hyundai Sonata, so we packed the kids in the car. We packed camping gear in the car, and we set out for a couple months. And we were supposed to be retired. I thought, okay, we're going to be retired. Like, so we drove around the country, visited national parks.
But your kids I saw one of them just got their license, so they're not that old.
They're not that old. And most of my friends knew you're going to do something, but don't rush into choosing what you want to do. And so I thought, okay, but I still had this business consulting thing in the back of my head, or sales. And then we actually bought a boat and lived on our boat. We bought the boat
With the kids?
With the kids, yes.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
You guys like close quarters.
We did. I love the boat. Like, it was a 46-foot sailboat.
Yeah.
We got it on December 31st, 2019. And we bought it down South Florida, sailed back up to Amelia Island, and we were doing some work on it, and we were getting ready to go to the Bahamas. Our plan was to leave April 1st, 2020. So we had provisioned everything on the boat. We were getting ready to go, and then we had to use our supplies to get through COVID. Yeah. So we ended up not taking the boat to the Bahamas and stayed up in Amelia Island, Fernandina Beach on it, and the kids just fell in love with the community. And I thought, okay, like, we've already uprooted.
Were you homeschooling them then?
We were actually homeschooling them that year when we pulled them. We left Missouri in September 2019, and we homeschooled them that year, just where we were traveling around. And so, but I wanted to finish before we were going to the Bahamas. And so they actually finished their homeschool year right when all the other kids started homeschooling with COVID. So they were done, and I had lots of friends calling me like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, homeschooling. And we had to talk them through that. But so we ended up, I decided, let's not go to the Bahamas when they open back up after COVID. Like, we need to stay here, and we need to ground the family again. So we were planning to build a house, but then we found one that was for sale. And so we ended up buying that and redid that, or in the process of redoing it still.
4 years later.
Yes. Yeah, still some projects. But we got grounded again and buying that property. And then we started buying some other rental properties. And I thought, I really like this sales process. Like, I think I'm going to get my license and focus on commercial. That was my plan, thinking I can help other small business owners do that. And so that was kind of my intention of why I wanted to enter real estate. But then, I had made friends up here and just started telling a few people, oh, by the way, I got my real estate license. And they're like, oh, really? I have a friend looking to buy. Like, you have to talk to them.
Right.
And it kind of took off into the residential side, which was not the route I was planning to go. And that's how I got real estate.
Tell me, so, because I think, we're going to transient. I mean, a lot of people have come from somewhere else here, right? There's very few people that are Jacksonians or, Fernandina Beach. I'm sure the population of people who've moved in is much larger than the native population that were born and raised in Fernandina or Amelia Island or even Nassau County. They're moving in from over, like yourself. It sounds like you, in 4 years, because your business has gotten so good, you got involved with the community. Of course, the kids help because they're doing stuff, so you're kind of naturally just getting involved. But it sounds like you started making a lot of connections, creating a lot of relationships very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we knew my childhood best friend lived here, and so they were the only people we really knew in Fernandina. My cousin lives in St. John's or Ponte Vedra, but it was it was weird that I remember the first week we were here, we went to a parade, and it was just my husband and I and our 2 kids, and I looked around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know nobody here. Like, this is a weird feeling, because in our hometown in Missouri, we would have known everybody there. Right. And so I thought, okay, I kind of have to start making friends and, finding people. And it just kind of happened.
What do you, because I think I can't think I read about or listened to someone. He had a thing where every Tuesday. Oh no, I remember hearing him speak before. Every Tuesday was Taco Tuesday at his house, and his goal was he could not invite the same person twice. So it was his way of meeting new people. This was a real estate person, and that sort of thing. And I think some people are natural or have a more open. The winery may have done it for you, where you're doing wine tasting. Come in and let's shoot the bull and drink a glass of wine, right? I mean, it's just natural to do that, or entertain, right? Entertain people. Is that something you did, or do you do that where you naturally just, whether it's going out to dinner or maybe have people over, because I think that you kind of have that personality, and from the winery it kind of graduated here. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, it was, it was kind of awkward for us because we lived on a boat, and COVID kind of started when we were here, and so we couldn't really have people over to our house because we didn't even have a house. We barely fit on our boat.
Right. And nobody was really going over because you wear a mask. And
it was like a really awkward time. But I think I like learning about people and their stories. I think I got that from the winery. You would just learn so much when you're pouring wine with people. And so I like talking to people and hearing about their stories and helping them. Like, I took my son to the DMV. Like you said, he got his license, and I checked in with the guy, and my son was laughing because I just said, "How was your Thanksgiving?" And he just started talking, and we ended up having a 10-minute conversation. It's not about real estate. I just like hearing people's stories.
I think it's so someone who's listening right now, you had the opportunity of a passion you had in the winery. This is what I'm, because I could see this going on naturally for you. You, if you're going to run a winery and have a wine shop, you've got to have that warm, welcoming personality, and then people come in and they don't know you, so a lot of times they don't say nothing. But if you're able to say, hey, how was your Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden, boom, they tell your whole life story, right? Or their whole life story. Yeah. And you've done that enough times, and now your business that you meeting new people in the real estate business that you've never met before, maybe it was a referral, possibly a third party friend or something, but your ability to build the relationship in the now in real estate was just because you had so much experience of having those conversations in the winery.
That's good. I've never thought that through.
Yeah.
Because I always think to myself, I'm like, I'm not really a people person, and I'll say that to my friends, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you are a people person."
Yeah.
Like, no, really, because I am pretty introverted too, and so I like being on my computer. I like analyzing data. I like details. I definitely need my space, but I do find if I'm at home on the computer all day, okay, I've got to go for a walk and at least see some other people and say hi. So I guess there's
I forget what we meant. We talked about it very early in the conversation. Your ability to educate. Like I said, in the winery, you want to educate people on the wine and why this wine goes with this type of steak or fish or whatever you're eating. And you just naturally just are educating and talking. It's become that's why you're that people person, because you don't assume, oh, I'm not going to, if I tell them about that, they'll think I'm talking down to them. You realize that most people have no idea. They don't know about Fernandina. They don't know about this little restaurant over here. And you take it upon yourself to be the host.
Yeah. And you are a psychologist. Mr. Colleen. You're right.
Yeah.
But I do, I genuinely, I think, want people to be happy. And so, just like you said, I don't want somebody coming to Fernandina Beach and having a miserable time. I feel like I have to tell them where that restaurant is or the best beach to go to, the little things like that.
Right.
I like sharing those things.
Well, I think a lot of us in our day-to-day activities, you're around there all day long. You're Fernandina, the restaurants, and we just assume everyone else does. When really they actually don't. And when you take that moment to share, hey, have you guys been to this restaurant? This is, hey man, you got to go over there. They got a great sandwich or chowder or whatever it is. And it's those little things. It's like John Maxwell says, one of the ways to influence people is introducing them to other people. Don't assume people know each other. Yeah. You know what I mean? And just whether you think there's a connection, but just someone comes within an immediate range, 6 feet of you or whatever. Hey, do you know? So let me introduce you. You never know, but that power of you making that introduction, whether it's a person or a restaurant or telling them some little nugget about Fernandina or Amelia Island, they're like, wow, no one's ever told us about that before.
Yeah.
And you gain a lot of credibility and influence.
And I think you're right. People don't like being told they don't know something. And that would always drive me nuts when I'd go to a tasting room and say, the person behind the bar was saying, oh, well, this tastes like this. You can only, there are all these rules with wine. You can only drink this kind of wine with this kind of food, and kind of, you know, tell me things I know already.
Right.
But, and something in our business in the winery that stuck with me, I think, today is there was another quote. I can't remember who said it. It may have been Dale Carnegie, but it was something like, people don't care how much you know.
No, until you know how much you care.
Yes.
Theodore Roosevelt was actually, I think, is the one.
Is that who it was?
I think it's.
Okay.
I have an actual thing. I don't know if I have it. Maybe I have it at home. I have an actual like framed thing. So you talked a little bit about why you got into real estate, how that evolved there. Tell us about, you know, getting started. Where, so you decide you're going to get into real estate, but when I think one of the greatest steps as a real estate agent in their success path, or how fast they get started, is where they line themselves up with first. I didn't see anything other than Engel and Volkers on your resume. Is that?
I started at a smaller agency.
You started small.
Yes.
So, what did you just select that because a friend was there or you knew someone there? What was your decision making in choosing that first brokerage?
Yeah, I knew the broker there. And I really wasn't thinking I was going to do this full time. I was kind of thinking, okay, I can sell a few businesses here and there. If we buy some rental properties, I just need somewhere to hang my license and do these transactions for us and find some business owners
Right.
to help them. I thought there's so many small businesses in Amelia Island. But then, I mean, I told a couple friends, and they told a couple friends. And I don't know, it was almost like I was keeping it a secret. Like, I don't know why. And then I remember I was at a party one night, and somebody there was like, oh my gosh, people will want to work with you. You have to send a letter out to people you know with your business card, and that I think it'll blow up for you. And I was like, I don't know, that's not really my style. But then I thought, well, okay, I might as well announce it. And so I did. And 3 days after I sent that letter out, I got a call from somebody I barely knew saying, hey, I have a lot. This letter was perfectly timed. Will you help me sell this lot? And I think in there I had picked up 2 buyers at the same time, and we're working on helping them buy their house. And then I ended up getting kind of a random lead from a really, like a $2+ million house, and that was the first house I listed in Amelia Island.
Nice.
And you know, I got that phone call, and for the next 2 days, I'm like, I don't even have a listing presentation. I'm gonna have to work on this 24/7. And please don't ask me how many things I've sold, because that's not gonna end well. But
how am I gonna handle that question, right?
Yeah. But I put my presentation together and got the listing, and you know, doing those first couple transactions and getting through the closing, I was like, I love this. Like, I mean, the feeling at the closing when you can give somebody the keys and see how happy they are. Like, one of the people, it was their first house they were purchasing, and they were so excited. Like, just seeing that joy, it's like, this is awesome. I want to do this. Right. So then I kind of transitioned. Let's do
well, this is going to transition into this is something I'm preparing a talk with with all the all the agents that I've interviewed. Have you ever read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth? Okay, so I watched her TEDx speech. I auditable her book and so forth, and I actually lent it to a friend. I said I need it back though. But my talk is based. I call it the LLC, and obviously playing off limited liability company, but it's not limited. It's love, laughter, and consistency. To me, is a really foundation in what I look back in my life in some of the gritful moments. You were just going on what you love about the business. The laughter is something I have to expect. To me, because we've been listening to your story here, and everyone's probably going, oh, this is, everything for her has just, been roses. And I guarantee it hasn't. No. So we haven't talked about some of the challenging moments, but today, because you've been through so many challenging moments, I know that we're in there because it's life, that some of the challenges now, as we're more mature adults, we laugh about some of the stuff. We stopped and go, all right, he threw us a curveball, but remember back 20 years ago when we did that? My face was in the dirt, and we laugh about it. So I want you to tell something that's kind of bring everything, your stories, a couple situations, maybe in real estate, maybe at the winery, where you really like felt like, am I doing the right thing? And then the last part, consistency. What are you doing consistently in your business today that you think is part of your success?
I have lots of moments where things didn't go right.
That really just, I mean, like kicked you in the gut. You're like, oh man, should I get out of this or?
Yeah. I mean, one that really sticks with me at the winery was we got invited to do a blind wine test where kind of, if you saw, what was the movie? There was a big thing where they put Missouri wines up against California wines.
Okay.
in a wine tasting. And they asked us to put one of our red wines up against a California red wine. And in hindsight, they can't compare. Like, just Missouri wines don't have the tannins like California does. They're not the same, but they have a place in Missouri. And it was on live. I don't know if it was live TV or what it was on. It was on TV, and we didn't know how it was going to end up. And they hated our wine, and they tore it up, and they were mean and nasty, and I thought, what are we doing?
This is like a local Missouri TV station or something?
Yeah, it was a public television.
Oh, that wasn't good for the local public.
No, I mean, and I was just like, come on,
Yeah.
We're selling wine. So that was hard. But I'm like, you know what? We have people coming to our winery every day telling us our wine is good. We're selling. We were both able to quit our jobs and do this. I'm able to be with my kids, be thankful.
You went to your gratitudes.
Yeah, get back up there, get in the tasting room and sell more wine. Mm-hmm. And so then a year after that, we entered our wine in a competition, and our white wine beat out Cakebread Cellar's Chardonnay. And so I was like, yes, okay, you're back at it. But, I mean, I think I could easily given up at that point and said, everybody who said you could never have a winery in the Midwest and
they were right.
Missouri you can't make wine is right. But
I think because, one of the things Angel talks about in the grit is like, she's trying to figure out like, how do you, we're both raising kids, teenagers, and, how do you want them to have the same grit, right? But we know their life is a lot easier in many respects than ours, harder than others because of some of the benefits of technology and everything. They don't have to really go to the library to do their research. Shoot, now they can just go on ChatGPT and they'll create an outline for them, and then they need to write the paper themselves, right? But those things in life. But we want to make sure they have that ability to fight through those types of situations. But to me, I always. My uncle, great uncle actually, he went in as a private in the Army and retired as a major. He's one of the few that actually had field promotions and became an officer and so forth. But I remember when I was going to the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina, he's like, they're going to be screaming at you and everything else like that, but just wiggle your toes because they can't see you do that. And that was the laughter part that I got out of that, because that was funny. But he's right. And when these guys are yelling at you or screaming or adversity's in your face, you've got to at some moment step back and kind of laugh about it. Because and move on, and I think that's really part of having true grit. Yeah,
and I think there's something in me, since we did the winery, of the more somebody tells me you're not going to be able to do this or you're never going to succeed if you do that, I'm like, well, I'm going to try, and you can see. And I might fail, but I'm going to try to prove you wrong.
Well, you and I prescribe that, as a lot of the great successful people we see online and so forth talk about, don't take advice from the person who's not been where you want to go.
That's a good point.
Type of thing. So consistency. What are you doing consistently today? And maybe you can kind of explain a little bit how you developed into that, because maybe it's through as any entrepreneur does, you do a lot of trial and error. And how you got this, maybe some of the practices you're doing today that the real estate agents listening to can relate to.
Well, I think working at John Deere, that's one of the most iconic brands around the world. And just they were so focused on branding and protecting the brand and following the brand guidelines and consistency there. So that was something that stuck with me in the winery business and the real estate business.
But they weren't so consistent. They didn't get into the E chapter, right?
Right. They evolved.
Yeah.
But they, they're not always the first ones on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
They're going to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And, but I think when I started my real estate business, I started at such a small brokerage, I asked, okay, what are the, can I get a copy of the logo? Can I get the brand colors? And that broker didn't even know what I was talking about with, brand colors or text. So I kind of had to create my brand there, but I knew from the get-go, it needs to be consistent. I need to have the same font. I need to use the same language when I'm talking. I need to be consistent posting on social media. And so I still try and do that today, which when I transitioned to Engel and Volkers, I was like, oh my gosh, you have all that already,
right.
that base to go from. And that's what really drew me there, is because they have so many of those tools. And I knew, okay, I need to come here to take this to the next level.
I know how Engel and Volkers and Corey buys into their culture of, obviously your offices are very nice, they're modernized, and like you said, they have the very consistent brand type atmosphere. Do you think sometimes it's more actually for the agent than it actually is for the customer? Because I believe in life, if at John Deere, for example, I don't know if this true, but they really took care of their workers, their employees, and they knew if their employees felt confident, they were comfortable, they would work better, smarter, faster, all that type of stuff. Is Engel and Volkers, is a lot of that, is it more, you think, for the agents to feel proud that they got a nice, I say a nice suit on? Sometimes when you get dressed up, you feel a little better, right? Kind of walking into that office kind of gives you a little more pep in your steps type of thing than it is actually. Obviously a lot of brokers out there, it's not really the name that the client's going after. It's you as the person, right, that they want.
I think it's both. Because I think at Engel and Volkers, we have such a global reach, and so many of the properties, I list, a lot of them, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be perfect for an international buyer. And just being able to reach those buyers through Engel and Volkers, I think that really helps. But also, Corey is amazing. He has high standards for us, and I think that the customers see that. I've had a lot of customers say, I've had several come just because I'm at Engel and Volkers, not
right,
because it's me. And they said, we know you have the global reach, and we see Engel and Volkers does stuff differently. That's why we want to come with you.
Right.
So I think it's both.
So that branding is out there, that reputation.
Yeah. And at first, I think, not a lot of people on Amelia Island knew what it was when it opened up, or even how to say it. But now it's become pretty common in a short amount of time. Yeah.
Well, I was, looking at some of your transactions for this year, and as I would talk a little bit about the business, you it looks like you're about 60% cash.
Yeah, that's
a lot of cash, which is actually the number. I forget, it's been months, probably about 6 months since there was an article out. Maybe there's been other articles. The one I saw, in the greater Jacksonville area, we were one of the highest cash, if not the highest cash percentage of purchases in the country. And I was looking at you've had a couple $1 million plus sales that are cash sales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. It seems like when the interest rates have gone up, the cash buyers have gone down, which I found interesting.
Well, those, I think, and then you're talking to these people more directly than I am, but I think those people are in that financial area of the 1 million, 1.5 and on up. They're watching the market. And depending on what the market does, makes them feel good about whether or not they're going to buy a house or not. And then, are they going to use their money? Or are they going to use someone else's money and borrow? type of thing.
Yeah.
Breakdown there. I was just checking the time here because I know we've been talking a lot. We talked for half an hour about wine, but that was good though. That was because I really believe, in some of the top agents that I've had on, they've had previous careers. I've had some young agents on that really had no other career or are doing well too, but really built off your structure of your business came from obviously your past experiences with John Deere and then your winery and running that. We were talking about consistency. I think it actually was where we were
Sorry,
going.
I got us way off track.
Did we actually answer the question? What you're actually
consistency? I try and be real consistent with my social media.
When you say that though, break that down for someone listening. I'm really consistent with my social media. What does that mean to you?
So I do a real estate tip Tuesday where I put a different tip
I saw that
every Tuesday,
on LinkedIn.
And a real estate term Thursday where I try and find a kind of unique term that some people don't know about and talk about what that is.
Like escrow.
Yes. Good job.
Earnest money.
And then something that I'm just so analytical. I really like analyzing the data when it comes out every month on, have the sales gone up? Has the average sales price in our area gone up or gone down? And so I try and send out a monthly report analyzing that information and telling buyers and sellers kind of what that means to them. And I get pretty detailed in some of those videos. And I think, I kind of find the right buyers and sellers with that. People that, think the same way I do.
Well, I saw that because I went on LinkedIn and looked there, and I noticed I saw the Tip Tuesday thing. You're doing some stuff on LinkedIn.
Not as well as I should be. I haven't accepted your friend request yet.
Yeah, so you do need to do that so I can share across. But in some of the clientele that you're looking for, the Engel and Volker, $1 million, $2 million buyer, that's an area that they work in. They're seeing stuff coming up in front of them and said, hey, their friend posted an article or wrote an article or, got promoted or whatever. They're getting those LinkedIn things, those professionals at those levels that are at that financial savviness are on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that this morning, I was like, oh, that's probably what I need to focus on in 2025 is LinkedIn. Because you're right. You're totally right. That's where kind of my target market is. And so I haven't done as well of a job on LinkedIn as I should.
And it's not that difficult, especially ChatGPT makes everything so easy right now. You do this video, in case you did your Tip Tuesday or whatever. You do the video on the market. There's nothing to go on to ChatGPT. Said I got a video here. I need a short LinkedIn article, talking about Fernandina Beach and the sales and this. Boom, you tell, and boom, it'll spread out a professional. You don't even have to think. Just put your ideas on there, and then go through and read it. Maybe you edited it a little bit. Boom, you got a LinkedIn article.
That's a great idea.
I wasn't doing it on my Instagram or YouTube. I was kind of doing a lot of copy and pasting for the YouTube because you get the my editor will put a YouTube description of the entire podcast, right, or that kind of thing. But you just go into, you can actually upload the video. I haven't got it that I feel confident in it, but I can actually, what I've been talking to ChatGPT, and I said, I'm going to upload you the entire transcript so it can read the transcript. And then I go in and say, okay, I've got a reel for Instagram, and it starts with this line, whatever the first 3 or 4 words are, and ends with this. It goes into the transcript and picks out what you said and then creates a caption for you. So it will do these things. If you don't feel you're doing them very well or professional, it puts them in there, will put all the hashtags or whatever you want, and boom, you cut paste and it's in there. Yeah, it just takes a couple minutes. So
I've started, I think ChatGPT and some of the AI tools out there are awesome. It took me a while to be okay with that because I was a copywriter. majored in communications.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's taking that job away now.
It's as good as me, but I'm like, oh, it's better.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think I've really started to dabble deeper in it. It was a couple years ago when Marky Lemons came for the RE Bar Camp. She put me onto it, and I started dabbling into it. But my wife's been using it for a lot more of her stuff, and I was like, let me go see what I do, because I've uploaded. Been uploading the transcripts from every show that I have, because again, I want to write a short book about coming up on 250 episodes, and grit being kind of part of the theme. Because all the agents have had some adversity, talking about that, but some of the commonalities. This is what 200 plus agents in Northeast Florida say what it takes to be a realtor, basically. I took there was a course I'm approved for with Florida Realtors, the Intro to Real Estate Finance, and I was asked to teach it in January. So I went in there and looked at the materials. I'm like, holy cow, this stuff is like outdated, because I haven't taught it in a while. I mean, but I live it.
Yeah.
But all the stuff it's talking about, all the things with the VA, obviously the conforming loan limits changed. FHA's changed, some of the MIP and all that other, a lot of those things have changed. I uploaded to Chat GPT, and it helps me go through. I know what it needs to do, but it's going through and rewording it, and it's like, and it's going to. I said, what do you think needs to be done to update this? And it's going through the entire thing. And some of the areas, like talking about APR and so forth, I'm like, well, no one really talks about APR anymore. How do you compare loan? It's the loan estimate. Just check Section A. So I've actually added the loan estimate there. It talks about APR, but I said, if you really want to simplify it for your clients, this is what you need to do. So now I've added that to the course. So I've got to send it back to Florida Realtors for them to approve, but it's so outdated right now, no one can teach that course. But ChatGPT will speed that process so much faster.
So much faster.
It was creating the charts for me and everything, like the stuff for VA and the funding fees, right? If you put 5% down or 10%, that kind of thing. But if you're not dabbling in it, I would tell anyone listening right now, use it just for your Instagram captions.
Yeah.
Just tell it what the video is about. You don't necessarily have a transcript like I do, because I get a transcript from my editor from the show, so I already have it and just upload it. Just go in there and say, hey, I did a reel talking about this, and this, and then boom, it'll create one for you.
That's really good.
Yeah, that looks good, and you don't have to worry about people what they think about you. So it looks like you put time into it. Let's finish up with this. And this will evolve a little bit into what you're doing individually. What is, I think my perception of Corey, because obviously I'm not listening to Corey every day or anything like that. I haven't talked to him in a while. I do want to get him back on, because I had him on, like, I forget what episode it was, like 40 something or something like that. So it's been a few years. But what is the word coming down at Engel and Volkers? Because I imagine you guys communicate as a brokerage, and sharing best practices and so forth. What are some staple things that they think everyone should be doing right now in this current market condition?
Yeah, I mean, Corey's just amazing to work for. Like, we do have monthly meetings where we try and stay not just up to date, but ahead of what's coming out.
Yeah.
So, the real estate industry is going through a lot of changes over this past year. I felt like we knew what was happening months before, and already prepping what we had to do. I think that something we've been taught and working on, buyer presentations, just educating them on the changes and how that affects them, and getting real consistent with your story, practicing how you sell yourself as a buyer's agent is big. Another big thing is video. I didn't do a lot of video before I came to Engel and Volkers, and I think it's one of those things you just have to try and do your first video. And my videos are nowhere near perfect at all. I mess up all the time, but I think I did a Facebook or a YouTube video and put some ad money behind it. And I remember calling my husband, because I was going to work and I stopped to get a coffee, and 2 people at the gas station recognized me after that, and they said, I saw you
kind of boosted it to the general area or something? You did a little boost or an actual ad?
It was an actual ad.
Okay.
Because you can target, there's so much targeting
Yeah.
you can do in YouTube. And I targeted Fernandina Beach. And I think I opened it with, hey, Fernandina Beach homeowners. That's how I opened a lot of it. And it catches, oh, she's talking to me.
Yeah.
But just really getting my face out there and giving buyers and sellers information they want. So I think video is huge.
It's their, the Gallup group. They are great YouTubers.
They are amazing YouTubers.
Yes. Austin Preck, who I've had on the show, he lives in Beacon Lakes down here in St. Johns County. And there is that thing that you're on YouTube, you're on TV.
Yes.
And people immediately think you're a celebrity in some way, shape, or form. But the subliminal thing that's going on is that relationship. It's just like we're having this conversation, the video's on you, your facial expressions, where you pause, people pick up on that and they start creating a relationship even though they're looking at a screen.
Yeah.
And when they do see you, and of course you don't see them because you created the video, you're not seeing them. You're like, why is this person talking to me? It's because they've seen you on TV. They think they have a relationship with you.
And that totally surprised me. You're totally right. Like people said, I've seen you on TV. It wasn't YouTube. It was, oh, you have that TV ad. And at first I'm like, no, I don't have a TV ad out there. YouTube, but
yes, you did.
Yeah. And you're right. And I think, what I like about it is because it's, I'm not going to be the perfect agent for everybody. Not everybody's going to like my personality. I'm not going to like everybody's personality, but I feel like they get enough of my personality through the videos to know whether or not they're going to like working with me. And so when I go to that first, listing appointment, they already think they know me. And even though we may have never met.
I think it's an untapped area. I mentioned just a couple people. Chris Snow's another one who does a lot of, Josh Rogers, another one. There's 4 people that I know I can name off the top of my head that are regularly doing social media or YouTube. I should say YouTube. I'm going to focus on YouTube here. I'm on YouTube all the time here on the TV behind you while I'm working. And because people have gotten so negative about the news and so forth, they're getting their news by going on and seeing these individuals who are doing the research and getting the background and actually showing you the facts. They're getting it from YouTube because they're going on there and they have these people. They follow them like podcast. Well, they are pseudo podcasters, just doing more video podcast than the audio podcast. They're doing both like I do, and people are going on and that's where they're getting their information from. So every time you go to click on, oh yeah, I want to see him. And I click on that thing, the first thing that pops up is an ad.
Yeah.
And they're going to play that ad for whatever amount of time until they allow you to skip it. But if that's an area you want to advertise in, you're going to get some hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, my videos,
because it's untapped. You don't have a lot of competition in the area.
Yeah, and you're right. And so many people are on YouTube now, like not going through your traditional, turning on ABC.
Yeah. Or when they do go, if you do, pull up a news station, it's just focused on the more or less the topic that you want to hear about, and then you move on. Maybe it's a 5 or 10 minute video that maybe they're talking about or interviewing somebody. Okay, I want to see that. You're watching, but while watching that 10 minutes, you're getting commercials every few minutes in there.
Yeah.
That are popping up an ad, and of course you can skip it, but they're seeing you. I see Chris Snow has been doing a lot of advertisements on YouTube, and I'm seeing Chris all the time, every day. It's a handful of times every day talking about, hey, are you looking to buy and sell in Northeast Florida?
And that, talking about consistency, I was, I've done it for the market updates for maybe 2 years now. And 1 month, I'm like, are people watching this? Like, does this really resonate with people? And I didn't do it that month. And I had so many people, they're like,
where's the market
update? Where's your video? Yeah, I didn't get your thing. I miss it. And
that's awesome.
Like, okay, just because people aren't commenting on your social media or leaving you a comment on YouTube or Facebook doesn't mean they're not seeing
it. When I was interviewing Chris about maybe a year and a half ago, he says, yeah, I've had, we were talking about social media and that doing, your marketing or I call it the top of mind marketing, which I think is the most important thing in real estate, is just keep reminding people I'm in real estate. Just like when you first started and you send out all those cards or whatever to say, hey, I'm now doing real estate. you're doing that every day when you put an Instagram post up or Facebook post up or YouTube video, right? You're just reminding everyone, I'm in real estate. I'm in real estate. And Chris said the guy, I guess the person came to him and said, I don't think I'm getting any business from, social media. He goes, okay, just stop doing all your social media and see what happens. Because I think we don't know where the lead really is coming from. Or maybe someone is saying, hey, you need to use Colleen. So like, well, let me go check out this Colleen. And they're going on and they're seeing your social media. Oh, yeah, she's like me. I can relate to her. I'd like to work with her because she's seen your social media and now knows you before she knows you.
Yeah. And I like what you said about, reminding people I'm in real estate. And sometimes you meet people in sales that, you go to a party and you're like, oh man, I don't want to talk to them because all they're going to do is sell me whatever. And,
right.
And I never want to be one of those people. So I really try when I'm out in public and hanging out with friends not to talk real estate. Like if they want to talk real estate, they can bring it up. And I'm happy to talk about it with them, but I don't want to be the person always
inserting it into the
real
conversation.
estate. Yeah, but I think with social media, you can talk about it, and if they don't want to see it, they can click the box and don't have to see it. Move on.
But all they have to do is actually, they don't even have to even watch the video. They could just see your panel and see like because I got your Instagram up right here, and that's just seeing without even playing the video. I know you're in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not looking to buy and sell right now. Don't really care what she's saying. Oh, that's a house in my neighborhood. Let me see what she's talking about, even though I'm not ready yet. But it's constantly just flashing in front of your friend's face on a regular basis. Because what's the worst thing you do in any business here in sales, whether it's loan officer or a real estate agent, is have one of your friends go use someone else and say, "Oh, I didn't know you were still doing that." Yeah. What would you, looking back and focus on real estate? We're focused on the real estate career now, coming up on 4 years. And if there's a couple things, go into them. What are maybe some things you may have done differently? Did you try something, didn't work, that type of thing, or expand on that if you could.
I think, I've done some like different tactics that obviously haven't worked. And so before you sign up to do, you have people trying to sell you stuff all the time, trying to sell you ads and different things, and just analyze those tactics and say, is this really working for me? Just because, 90% of the realtors, my competitors, are doing those things doesn't necessarily mean they're working. And so I think I did some stuff early on, just like, oh, well, every other realtor does this, I should do that. And it didn't work for me. So finding things you're comfortable with. Like if you absolutely are, fear being on camera and that is just, going to ruin your whole career, don't do video then, do print or whatever tactic works for you. Don't force things that you don't like doing.
Being in a group like at Engel and Volkers, because Corey doesn't really take on green real estate agents. They all have a level of experience. And if you look at, I love when you guys put out your, who's done great this month. And I see some, Holly Griggs is obviously always on there, to have those type of people like in the office with you to talk about these types of things. Because you guys are always, the loan officers do too. Oh, hey, do this, we'll get you more leads, or, buy this fancy, flashy gadget, this is the great things are going to happen. To actually have some conversations and almost strategize, because I can imagine all the top producers that I've had on are all collaborative. They all want to tell you how they did it.
Yes.
Because in reality, some people are like, oh, well, I don't want to tell my secrets. The reality is, you and I know, if someone actually duplicates exactly what you're doing, that's like a unicorn.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to do it. And I will actually say 99% will never do what you actually just told them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll hear your advice. They're going to take it and do what they still want to do or whatever, that type of thing, or maybe create their own thing by hearing 2 or 3 different people and then devises something totally different. But no one's ever going to do exactly the way you did it.
Yeah.
Because they're not you.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the business. But how important it is, to find an office like Engel and Volkers, and there's some other offices in town, that you have some of these resources. I mean, imagine you've had some negotiation situations, because those are all different every time,
Right.
where you've had to like maybe make a few phone calls with your office mates.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how huge that was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't really planning to leave the brokerage I was at, and I got a call from Corey, and I realized when I hung up the call asking me to come interview, I'm like, oh, I just said yes to that. Like, I'm going to have to call back and cancel that interview because I don't want to leave. Oops.
Sorry.
But then when I went and met with him, he was talking about the culture there, and that they kind of handpick who they bring on and get input from the team and want to work with people you really like. And he was totally right. I couldn't believe it. Like when the first team meeting, I'm like, these people are amazing. They're rock stars in the business. They're very happy to share what they're doing, support each other.
And and I bring this up every time I have someone on Engel and Volkers. It's a higher level conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of these brokers that do kind of cater to the green, they never get out of the green. They're always talking to the green agents. The trainings are always designed for the newer agents, less than a year type of thing, where the conversations at an Engel and Volker meeting, I imagine, are oftentimes a higher level conversations, and you were able to relate to some of the stories. Maybe someone had a unique negotiation they shared with everybody just to expand everyone's horizon on a particular unique situation that they may have had. Because you're out at the beach, there are unique situations.
Yes.
There aren't these planned urban developments, although they are up there. But when you're dealing with these higher end homes, custom homes, and on the beach, there's a lot of little extra things you need to know.
There is. And I think you have to have somebody that's, in real estate, you're going like this. Like, you don't have time to call your broker and wait for them to, if you have a question, get back to you 3 hours later.
Yeah.
And that was one of my concerns going to a bigger brokerage. Like, okay, we have 160 agents. Am I ever going to get to talk to him? And I don't know how he does it, but he is the most responsive person I have ever worked with. Whenever I have a question, I can call him or text him, and if it's a half an hour later, he gets back to me. That's a really long time.
Right.
And so just having that person
He's probably watching a
support
football game, and you just gotta wait till it's over.
I don't know. I think he just works nonstop.
Yeah. Well, you have so many other people in the office to use as a resource for a lot of things.
Yes, and that's been great. Like, we've done a lot of agent caravans, where we go tour houses as a group and offer each other feedback. And yeah.
Is it a thing in the Engel Volkers culture with the whole white party thing? You guys, I mean, how many times I've seen you guys post? Oh, yeah. You're at every event you guys go to. I think it was one out in Vegas was the last one or something. Everyone's in white.
Yes.
Is that like a standard procedure there?
Yes. I mean, I had to buy some new clothes because I moved off the boat. I didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
But the parties, I mean, it is super fun. And it just talks about, or, emphasizes we are kind of excited about the brand. Like, who else has a white party out there where you get excited to wear a white suit or a white dress?
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a higher level. Like, at our events, we have valets that help with parking. That was just a different level, but it just shows... we want to be at this higher standard. That's who we are.
Well, when you give off that perception that you are, that's your brand at the higher level, it raises the bar for everybody. And I think it's a dual-edged sword, as we talked about earlier. I think it's not only for the agents to bring up their level. And when, when you put on that nice suit or something, you get dressed up to go, to an event or something like that, you just, you kind of feel a little better. And I think that's part of the whole not only the brand that you're showing to your clients, but it's actually the brand you're selling to your people.
Yes. Yeah. And one thing we do different that I loved, and Corey talked about this in their interview, is we have an actual presentation box, like a white presentation box, and we'll bind our listing presentations and we give them to people in a white binder or a white book. Like, it's actually hardbound book. And I would say 90% of my listings, I go back to the photo shoot or to start to do showings, and they have that listing presentation on their coffee table. They're proud of it. I mean, they've decluttered their house or staged their house, but they leave that out there, and that just kind of tells me they're excited about that quality.
Yes. I agree with you. I'm going to finish up with this for any of the listeners because I'd like to think there's some new people, anyone considering getting into real estate, or maybe they're just they don't know what's going on. But I imagine you've had people approach you, as every real estate agent has, girlfriends, whatever. Should I get into real estate? What is your answer to that?
My answer is always yes. Like, try it. Like, you'll never know if you like it until you try it. I mean, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, am I going to be a realtor? I would have said, heck no. Like, what does that have to do? And I love it. Like, I just think you can go so many different routes with a real estate career, and there's room for everybody. Like, do it. Yeah. If not, you'll be more knowledgeable. Even if you don't get your license, if you take the training, you'll be more knowledgeable when you buy and sell your house.
Now, we go back to that thing I was talking about earlier. We've talked about all the great things, okay? But would you agree it's important maybe that they actually call you or call some experienced agent and go out and have a cup of coffee and hear the great things of why you love what you do, but it's the love things that you get over. It's not all HGTV and $1 million listing or whatever, right? There's some times you're going to get kicked in the face, or you feel like you've been pushed down, and you got to get back up and keep going.
Yeah, but I think that just helps you as a person get stronger. You're right. I mean, it can be an emotional roller coaster, and I think a lot of people just see a little glimpse into your world when they're working with you or on the outside, but it is a 24/7 job. Yeah,
you live your it's real estate. The real estate industry is, even in the lending world, because we've got to cater to you guys. Your customer may be 8:00 on Saturday night. If it was like back in 2020, you better have that offer at 8 a.m. when that listing agent wakes up. That offer's in there. So if we're at 8:00 at night and we need to get that pre-approval done so you could submit that offer, I mean, that's we live our lives. That's our lifestyle. We understand that.
So your job's way harder. You have a realtor deal with and a customer.
So I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having
me. I had a great
this
conversation. Really enjoyed the story at the winery, which I really truly, like I said, the psychology of what it's created you, your personality and so forth, and why you were successful now into real estate. And probably could be in many other things.
Well, it was exciting. I haven't talked about wine for a long time, so that got me excited.
Well, maybe that should be part of some of your videos.
Yeah.
The realtor. We got to come.
The
wine. So we got to come up with some catchy thing. But that might be something where you do, because I just sold this house. Did you know this wine would be good with? One of the restaurants in town, right? You're going to have some mahi-mahi, blackened mahi-mahi. This wine's good with it. Whatever. I don't know. So that might actually be just an extra video you could throw in there, just a little educational video.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And now it does. Like, our white wine would be perfect with mahi-mahi.
And it's right in it's obviously right in your wheelhouse. I mean, that's that.
Yeah.
So you can talk with great confidence. Excellent.